Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for The House with a Clock in Its Walls. And what A House with a Clock in Its Walls is essentially about is we center on the character of Lewis in the 1950s, and he goes to live with his Uncle Jonathan, and once he gets to Uncle Jonathan's house, he starts to realize that there's clearly something supernatural going on, and eventually starts to realize that his Uncle Jonathan is, in fact, a warlock, and that there is definitely some sort of evil presence within the house that him and Cate Blanchett's character have to defeat. So, The House with a Clock in Its Walls overall, I was very intrigued by this movie, to say the least. Just knowing that Eli Roth was involved with a family film in general, I mean, that's gotta be one of the most bizarre, choices for a director I've seen of this kind in a very long time. However, you guys know me. I love it when directors do something that, they go against their strengths. They try to do something that is a little bit different from what they usually do. So I was really excited to see how that would turn out, but it also seemed like a very creative and fun movie, and it just looked like a really, fun ride overall. And for the most part, The House with a Clock in Its Walls is definitely a fun ride. However, I don't think this movie is nearly as good as it really is. It's not as memorable as I really want it to be, but we're just getting into it right now, starting off with the cast. And for me, easily, that is one of the best parts of this movie. If the cast in here was not in there, I truly don't think this movie would be nearly as fun as it is, especially when it comes to two people in particular, Jack Black and Cate Blanchett. These two just kill it. They have fantastic chemistry. They steal every single scene that they're in, and they are just on fire in this movie. I mean, these two, when they work together, sure, there's a lot of insulting going on, but you also see the genuine camaraderie that they really do have, and this is a friendship that truly can't be broken. There's a really good arc with them in this film that I honestly really did enjoy, and I really do think these two just really, they gave a hell of a performance here. They required a lot less of them than they really did give, but they really did give it their all, I think, and that's definitely one of the best parts of this movie. I think these two, you could tell, were just having so much fun. Definitely some of the best parts of this movie for sure, and I really did love what we got from both of their characters. A lot of fun to watch, and like I said, definitely one of the best things about this film for sure. Now, unfortunately, the same can't be said for Owen Vaccaro as our main character here, Lewis, and look, I don't want to pick on him because he wasn't terrible. I don't want to say this was a terrible kid performance, but it wasn't very good either, and the only thing I've seen him in prior is the Daddy's Home films, and maybe it's because he didn't really have a lot to work with there that I didn't really notice it, but he really is not good here. Now look, there are some scenes in this movie that I do think he did a good job in. Scenes where, he is, quietly reacting to what's going on, or scenes when he is first meeting his Uncle Jonathan. Sure, you can see how bewildered and just confused he really is. He's really, he really just wants to get to the bottom of things, and you can very much tell. Anytime he needs to react big, though, whether it's being sad, being angry, it just doesn't really work. Again, I don't think Vaccaro is by any means a bad actor. I just think he needs a few more years, and then maybe he can improve, definitely. I don't think, again, this is not on the level of the kid from A Wrinkle in Time, for sure. It just, unfortunately, because this character is our lead, it does stick out more than others, and I just really was not a huge fan of him in this movie. Hopefully he does improve as an actor in future years, but for me at least, this just unfortunately did not work out. As far as the rest of the cast go, I think everyone does a relatively good job here. Kyle MacLachlan was fantastic in this movie as our villain here. We'll come back to the villain a little bit later, but I'm glad to see him still getting some recognition and still doing other projects, post-Twin Peaks, because I truly do think he is a very understated actor that doesn't get the credit he truly deserves. Renée Elise Goldsberry's pretty good here. Colleen as the neighbor I really liked. I really liked everyone in this movie, honestly. There wasn't really a performance here that I didn't think was good. I do want to talk about Sonny Suljic in this film because he plays this bully that is, he basically plays this character that is bullying Lewis, and throughout the whole film, I kept wishing that there was a role reversal here because Suljic just shows a lot more emotional material. He seems to be a lot more experienced as an actor, and it really does show here. And I was kind of, I was kind of thinking throughout the movie, how much better would this be if Suljic was actually playing Lewis, and maybe have Vaccaro play the bully, or maybe just have Vaccaro in a smaller role, because I just think it would have worked a lot better here. But in general, the cast is fine. They do what they need to do, and that's definitely something I will give this film. But now I really want to get to, of course, the thing that everyone's going to be talking about, which is the directing and the writing. How does Eli Roth do? I will say the directing here is actually really good. I thought he did a very good job with the transition from really over-the-top, body horror films to a much more grounded, fun family film. He did a very good job establishing that tone. You don't get the sense that this is something that he's not used to. It seemed like the transition was a lot smoother than expected, and that was a worry of mine. I was worried that he wasn't going to be able to make the jump, because it's something that's so drastic and so different from other stuff he's done that isn't really going to translate as well as he wants it to. And for me, I thought he did a pretty good job with it. I thought the style was definitely really good here. The film is a lot of fun at points, and he does a very good job with that. But he also does a good job in knowing when to get dark, but not too dark, and I thought his directing was pretty good. And if he wants to do another family film in the future, I honestly wouldn't be against it. I do think his directing was pretty good here. I thought his style was well done, and, he just wanted to make clearly just a fun little innocent kids movie, and I think he did a good job with that overall. But now we get to, I think, really my biggest problem with the film, which is the writing to this movie. Because, look, there are a lot of things I really do like about this film. I think the world building is especially strong, especially the idea that all this furniture comes to life. There's some really cool ideas there, and that's something that I definitely really do enjoy. And I do like the central mystery in this film, that there's this clock that's been, basically, it's been implemented into these walls, and, no one really knows what it's going to do, but when it strikes 12, something is definitely going to happen, and there's going to be some sort of effect, and they don't really know what to do about it. That is a very interesting concept. There's a lot of things you can do with that. And again, it is interesting, but I just don't think they dived into it enough. And the film does have a problem when it comes to what story it really wants to tell here. Because when the film is focusing on Uncle Jonathan, Cate Blanchett's character, whose name I keep blanking on, and Lewis, it does a good job with that. Those three are really interesting to watch together. They do a very good job with getting into the central mystery of everything that's going on. The problem is Lewis is our main character, and aside from a few things, he's just not very compelling. The most we get out of him is that his mother has died, and he frequently has these visions of her. But other than that, there's not really a lot going on with him story-wise, except for things going on with him and this bully. And to me, this felt like it was a completely different movie. Again, as much as I do like Sonny Suljic, it just didn't really feel like it fit here. It felt like it was just here, so Lewis had something to do, and I didn't really understand the point of it at all. There's also this girl he likes, which is very much shoehorned in here. I just didn't really understand the point of anything going on in that side of the film. I think, honestly, you could have cut a lot of that stuff out, and the film would have been exactly the same. I don't really think you needed it in there. And again, the central mystery alone is actually very interesting. I really did love where they were going with it. It is predictable. I will definitely say that. There is a big reveal in the third act that I thought was extremely obvious. The film plays it off like a big twist. To me, it seemed pretty obvious, but it is fun, and surprisingly, it's very funny, too. Like, I was chuckling a lot. I thought that like I said, Blanchett and Black, their banter is just a lot of fun to watch here. However, the film is more of a kid's film than is a family film, and what I mean by that is that a lot of times the jokes do veer into some really crude humor. There are fart jokes, there is a joke involving There's a joke involving urinating. I mean, there's a lot of really stupid humor in here, and that is where I do think this film does get a little messy. It didn't really seem to know who its audience was. Is it trying to appeal to really young kids, or is it trying to appeal to families? And I don't think they did as good of a job with that as they really could have. And like I said, the central mystery going on is very interesting. That is until the third act of this movie, because I thought they did a really good job establishing who Kyle MacLachlan really was, how Jack Black and Cate Blanchett were affected by this. They kind of had this like business together. It's a really interesting story overall, but once Kyle MacLachlan does eventually show up, he goes into full-on Saturday morning cartoon supervillain, and it just did not work out. And his initial plan in the movie is really, really dumb. It has to be one of the most ridiculous plans I've seen in the longest time. It reminded me of, it reminded me of this kids show that, I'm sure we all watched on Disney Channel, and I'll just say this, there's a certain episode of The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, and you guys will know it when you see this episode. You guys will know it when you see this movie, but when you get into the villain's final plan, it very much reminded me of that certain episode. Again, I don't want to spoil it because it's not something they tell you in the trailer, but it's really dumb. It doesn't really make a lot of sense at all, and the fact that this is what we were building up to, it just wasn't very satisfying, and I just didn't really enjoy that all that much. So yeah, that final reveal I do think kind of killed the movie just a little bit for me. It didn't like make it's not horrible, it's definitely not like the worst thing ever, but it really did, I think, cheapen a lot of what could have been a really successful villain, especially because they build him up as someone who was kind of lost and maybe has like PTSD or something like that, and once he eventually does come into fruition, all of that is pretty much thrown out the window, and it really did disappoint me because, like I said, I thought the build-up was very solid for him overall. Stylistically, though, this film is gorgeous. I really do love the look of the house in general. Like I said, there are a few things that do come to life. There's like this talking bush, which I thought was really creative. It's kind of like a dog, and this chair as well, which I thought was really cool. The house in general, like I said, is kind of alive, and I thought that was a really cool idea. Just scenes of, Lewis, trying to, get into the magic and things like that. There's a lot of really great shots in this film. One of the best ones for me was that pumpkin scene. It's a lot of fun to watch, and the CGI, no, it's not the best, but it is a lot of fun, and they do a good job with that. But the CGI is not always perfect. There's one shot in particular in this film, and it's awful, honestly. It's really dumb, and it goes into that really dumb twist I alluded to, and it just looks really ugly. I don't know what happened there, but it looks really ugly. The rest of the film looks really good, but it's really just this one sort of shot that actually does look really bad overall. The score, I think, is really fun and creative and really does go with, like I said, the tone the movie's trying to establish. And the editing, like I said, this film feels a little bit too long. The first act especially, I thought really kind of did drag on a little bit. Again, I really liked it when the movie is focusing on the three characters. They work very well together. But anytime we go to, Lewis being bullied or anything like that, it just doesn't really fit in here, and it kind of at times does feel like a completely different film. They do a good job of, staying in the 50s. It's just the film overall seems a bit confused with what story it really wants to tell. Like I said, The House with the Clock and Walls is a decent film overall. I do think that there is a lot to like about this one. Jack Black and Cate Blanchett, I think, work very well together. Unfortunately, Vaccaro's performance and that eventual reveal at the end just do bring it down for me a little bit. I think that had this film been just a little bit more grounded, maybe gotten a more experienced actor, and focus a little less on that really dumb middle school drama in this film, I think this film honestly could have been a lot better overall. I did enjoy myself more than expected, and again, I do want to see Eli Roth take on another family film because I do think he did a pretty successful job here, but just in general for me, this film could have been a little bit more entertaining than it ended up being. It's not a huge disappointment, but it is a film that I definitely wanted a little bit more from, and I am going to give The House with the Clock and Its Walls overall a C+. Like I said, guys, this is a film that I think you can enjoy in the moment, but just overall, it didn't come together in the way that I think it really wanted to. But that's really for my review of The House with the Clock in its Walls. Let me know what you guys saw this movie. All left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.